this is Divorce Station Dad coming at you with another video, how to live your best life after divorce. Now, this topic is very near and dear to my heart. It's a passionate subject for me, mainly because uh, I lived through a horrible divorce, and living my best life is what I'm doing right now. And I remember those times when I was sitting in one of my parents' room, like during my divorce, and being all panicky and stressed out, uh, you know, at my own divorce, and having to look for answers on YouTube of how to do this and how to do that. Mainly because I didn't even have a lawyer at the time. Um, mainly because I thought I could do it by myself, and I was afraid of the lawyer's fees. But living your best life is something that you don't even think of. You really don't, because you're so, or I was so en- enraptured with the divorce, or I was so caught up with the divorce that I couldn't see past the divorce. I really couldn't, because it was so stressful. It was so extremely stressful, with the court dates and meeting with your lawyer and going back and forth between my lawyer and my ex-wife's lawyer. You don't think of like what happens after. But all of a sudden, 2 years later, the dust settles, the divorce papers are signed. So what are you going to do? You have to plan your life. You have to find that. Now, some people, you know how it is. Some people look at the glass half full. Some people look at the glass half empty. Um, I chose to live glass half full, mainly because, I'm in my 50s now. 2/3 of my life is over. I've got 1/3 left. I'm not playing with a full deck. I've had, in my 18-year marriage, I had acquired high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, kidney failure. So I wasn't operating on a clean sheet of, a clean sheet or a clean marble sheet. I was operating on negative 1,000. So my first tip to you is don't rush into anything, because as a man, you're really feeling the void in your life. The void that occupied was occupied by your family, by your now ex-wife, your children, uh family, friends, all of that. So you're feeling in your heart the emptiness of that. And of course, when you're feeling heart pain, you want to fill that void because it feels so painful to experience it. But I'm just asking you to just avoid that temptation and just step back a little bit. Step back, sit down, and examine your life. Not just the divorce, your whole entire life. Because what led you to decide that your ex wife was the wife for you and you decided to marry her? You have to think about that. For me, I was going through a very rough time. I was questioning my parents' values and finding out that it wasn't my values anymore. And when they found that out, they rejected me, which hurt me even more, which also resulted in me being vulnerable and open. I also was a few years out of school. In Asian culture, your parents tell you, everything will be all right. Just get your degree. Well, no, that's not true. Everything wasn't all right. And so basically, I was emerging and being more comfortable in my own skin. But, like they say, birth is painful. And I was not just dealing with my parents' disapproval or questioning, who I was or who I wanted to be. But on top of that, I was running my first business. And, when you run your first business, you make a lot of mistakes. And I was certainly, one of those people. So I was getting hit on all sides. Plus, on top of that, I was profoundly lonely. I didn't have a relationship during school. So that was like 4.5, 5 years that I didn't have a relationship, because I was so scared that, my grades would suffer from having a relationship. because again, I wasn't emotionally mature enough to have a relationship. So I couldn't handle the stressors of school and the stresses of a relationship at the same time. So I just chose not going out and just concentrating on school, believing what my parents told me, that everything will be all right as soon as you get your degree. So I was dealing with that. And so I was open and vulnerable, broken and lonely. And that's how my ex wife stepped in. And then on top of that, once I married my ex wife, my parents were so disappointed. They disowned me for 5 years. So I no longer had any support. When my parents disowned me, then my entire family disowned me and followed my lead. So you kind of know who's for you, who's against you. Only my aunt and uncle stood by me. Everybody else in my entire family just left. So I was dealing with that. So I was dealing with a lot of things, but my point is that you have to look back and figure out what happened to you, what happened to you to lead to your decisions that you did, because you don't want to do it again. You don't want to commit the same mistakes again. You don't want to pick the same ex-wife again in another person. That would be horrible, right? So, and the other thing is that I know it's painful. It's very, very painful to look back, because it's very you look at every single bad mistake that you did, every single bad decision, every stressful decision that you shouldn't have taken, and of course that hurts your ego. Me, I mean, my particular situation, my ex-wife put the mirror to me like Dorian Gray. I mean, I just saw the you know year per year the picture disintegrate of my self-image. It just she put a wrecking ball to my self-image. And so um, during the divorce and after the divorce, it wasn't really that hard for me to look back, because I was being told I was no good. I was being told that I was a bad husband, all of that stuff. I mean, she really tried to destroy me from the inside out and leave me for dead post divorce, but thankfully it didn't work. So, you know, just at the very least, just think about your life. If you want to do something extra, get a pad and pencil out, just write down your story so that you realize. I mean, if you want to journal, if you want to put it in a diary, or just think about it, really, just sit down, no distractions, just think about it, because you don't want to commit those mistakes again. You really don't. Especially for myself, where I only have like 1/3 of my life left. I really want to make the most of my 1/3 of my life, so that I die happy and I die satisfied that I did my best to live my best life, and I am doing that right now. Believe me when I tell you I am. So that's tip number one. Number two, plan the rest of your life. Now that the dust has settled, this is a new start for you, as is with everybody who just got divorced. You don't want to make, like I said, the same mistakes. So you reflect, you learn lessons. Now it's time to plan your life. It's kind of like the foundation of a house. You make a strong foundation. How do you do that? Well, you make sure that you're right in the head, you're right in the heart, you're right in the gut, you're right physically, financially. You're right with your relationships. You don't have anybody around that is basically just an anchor around your neck, or is a toxic personality to you. You get rid of those people. You build a strong foundation. You are at peace with your environment. You're at peace for your relationships. That's what you do. And then when everything is done, you build the columns of your house. How's your job? I mean, my job sucked. I was working the retail sector, and I had to work retail hours. I was working weekends. I was working holidays. It sucked. It just did. But as a man, you had to take care of bills, and that's what I did. I took care of it. But while I was bearing that, I was straightening out everything else in my life. So, you have to be okay with your job, your career. If you don't like your career, change your career. Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm also a stand up comedian, which I thought I would never do in a million years. But, When you examine your life and when you examine your mistakes, you tend to, for me at least, I tend to say, screw it. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. If this is what I want to do, I don't care what anybody else says. I'm going to do it because I don't answer to anybody but myself. So when you plan your life out, plan what you want to be. I mean, write it down. What is your ideal self? Take a snapshot of your ideal self and write it down. How do you want to dress? What type of body do you want? What type of car do you want? What type of living conditions that you want? What type of relationship that you want, romantically and otherwise? I mean, you got to all write that down because something magical happens when you write down stuff. It tends to come true. And so I encourage you to write it down, not just think about it this time. Really plan out your life because every time you put pen to paper, just know that there is a very good chance that that's going to happen. So write carefully because I was still having a little bit of low self-esteem, so I tend to overcompensate by dressing up in the most outlandish outfits. I mean, I look like an Asian pimp. I mean, basically, I could show you a picture, but I tended to overcompensate because this thought came into my head. It's like, you got to fake it till you make it. So, I dressed up in blue ostrich shoes and multicolored shirts, and I was flamboyant. But, it kind of helped me kind of start recovering from, years and years of being pummeled emotionally. So you plan out your life, you plan out your relationships. I mean, I'll tell you, when I did the work in terms of who I am inside. I mean, I tell this to my children. What you are inside comes out. If you're broken, you're going to attract somebody broken. Luckily for me, I learned my lesson. I healed. I forgave myself for all my mistakes that I made. I made gratitude as the center point of my entire existence. I'm grateful. There are times where I could look at my life and it's like, there's not a lot of grateful, there's nothing there to be grateful for, but there was. Breathing in and out was grateful. I was grateful for that. Having a roof over my head, even though it was my mom's roof, I was grateful for that. I was grateful for having a car. I had a Honda Civic, but it was easy to maintain. It was cheap. Gas was cheap. It was good. It got me from A to B, and I was grateful and happy that I had a car. Stuff like that, and that actually helped me recover from my life. And also, I'm remarried now. I have a great relationship. I'm married to a great person. That wouldn't have been possible if I didn't do the work to heal, because she's emotionally stable. She's a really good wife, a really good person, and I'm very lucky to have her, and I'm very grateful to have her. And I'm grateful every day, and that's what it takes for you to have a happy relationship, and which is what I'm going to talk about in the next video, by the way. So the third thing is, have hope. Have hope that everything's going to be okay. Now, statistically, I mean, you look at the statistics. I mean, like, yeah, men are miserable during the divorce process, but a few months later, a few years later, I mean, they're back on their feet financially. They fare far better than females. Men are more likely to get remarried than women are. You look at the stats, that happens, and it happened to me. So, I live a great life. My career is on track. I mean, I'm pursuing being a stand-up comedian. I do videos to help other people and to help myself as well, go through the journey, and hopefully my journey will help somebody else's journey so that it wouldn't be so hard the way it was hard for me. So I hope this video has helped you. Watch out for my next video, and yeah, I'll see you later. So recently I had to tell my parents that I do stand-up comedy. They both laughed. My dad said, "Who said you were funny? Your grandpa's funnier than you, and he's dead." Then my mom chimed in and said, "Eric,
you married the wrong woman and you got a bad marriage for 18 years. Aren't you tired of making big mistakes? Wow. And then she said, do you even get paid for comedy? And I said, Mom, this is stand-up comedy. Of course I don't get paid. I'm lucky to get a glass of water.